We're going to sit down, your husband, you, your father, and me. The four of us are going to sit down, and we're going to find a way to solve this. I'm like, Mom, there's nothing to solve.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Pride Talk, where we feature in-depth conversations with Asian American LGBTQ plus professionals and our allies. Welcome to our new listeners. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your day. And thank you to our Nat Pride family for supporting Nat Pride and this podcast. I'm your host, John Ong, and with me is co-host David Moore. Hi, David.
Hey, John, and hi, everyone. Today, we continue our intimate conversation with Dr. Kim Liu. In this episode, we talk about her coming out, finding our tribe, and the importance of representation. But before we continue, I just wanted to take a moment to do a shout out to our corporate sponsor, Molson Coors. Because of their generous support, we are able to bring you this new season of Pride Talk and this fascinating conversation with Dr. Liu. So let's get back to Kim's journey and see how this new exposure to an inclusive and welcoming environment and finding her tribe impacted her marriage and family relationships.
When I went to that class and coming out to people, I was still afraid of being out, you know, and thinking of, well, I'm married to a guy. How's that going to look, you know, and how is my family going to take it and all the judgment. And it was not until I moved to Orlando and I went to my master's degree to get licensed as a doctor of oriental medicine, that I found another tribe. And the dean of the school, she was a bisexual woman married to a woman who was a professor. I mean, our school, there were so many LGBT people in such a small campus. Every single class had at least two. I was like, I cannot believe how many people are here. I mean, what are the chances? And I recall my first day of class, that professor, you know, she walked in. I'm like, oh, my gaydar just went off. You know? Like, she's one of me.
We're everywhere.
And, and I felt like, oh, wow, this is great. And she's talking about her partner. I'm like, oh, great. And then find out the partner is the dean. I'm like, wow, they're out. You know, they're teaching and the dean, and everybody knows that they're married and everything is fine. Because up till that point, I felt that I couldn't be out in the workplace. Before I used to work with children, and I was always afraid of parents thinking that I don't understand why they do this, but I've heard comments about parents saying like, oh, if you're gay, then you're a pedophile. That's nothing to do with anything like that. But that just shows how some people are so close-minded, you know? And working with children, I feel like I have to be in the closet because of that. Like I might lose my job, or the parents are going to think I'm doing something to their children, you know, which is ridiculous saying that out loud.
It's a stupid idea, but people still, people still have that. It's an ignorant assumption, and it can kind of silly, but it's still there. The misconception.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I was afraid of being out in the workforce because of that. Yeah. And thinking, you know, I might lose my job, or I might lose my license, you know. There might be like a mob mentality. People are going to go against me. So like in the professional sense, I was not out. Yeah. I might be out to some of my friends here and there. And even then, not everybody, because remember, I went to a church school. So a lot of my friends are Mormons. Yeah. And I didn't know how they were going to take it, you know. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'm set. You know, I'm married to a man. You know, everything is fine. All the checks boxes are done. You know, like I'm okay. But it wasn't. And being at that school and my dean, like she and I became really close friends. I recall when I think it was the first week of school, and she called me to the office. And I was a little bit nervous, you know, you're getting called to the office by the dean. What did I do wrong, right? And apparently she was such a gentle soul. Like whenever she realized there would be an LGBT student, she'll call them into the office to welcome them. And let them know, you know, you're with family. Yeah. And that's how she made me feel welcome. And she said, you know, I'm a bisexual woman and I'm married to my wife, and, you know, she's a teacher and everything is good. And, you know, welcome to the school. And it was just great. And then I met, you know, that same week I met my it was Western anatomy class, and a Russian gay man. I was like, this is awesome. I really like this school. And then I'm meeting all the different classes, and there's at least one or two gay person in the class. And I'm like, this is great. I wasn't out yet, but it was good to know that
you're with your people.
Yeah, I was with my people, and I felt comfortable. And it was not until I think second year into the program, and my dean, she said, I want to open a local chapter from our state association, and I think you'll be a great candidate. And I said, okay, what do you need help with? She's like, I want to do a local chapter for the LGBT community. And I'm like, okay. And, at the time, I'm trying to think, I don't remember if I was already the student association president or not. Maybe I was, I can't remember. That's probably why she reached out to me. And she said, like you have, the student body, and like who might need help. And I want to provide this support to our community. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to be out.
Are you still married at that time?
Reaching out to
are you still married at that time?
I was still married at that time. Yes. Nobody in school knew I was gay or, not straight, except for my teacher. I recall I was, her wife was someone I was doing counseling with, because I was struggling at the time about, again, my sexuality, feeling like I'm living a lie, but I do love my husband, but I'm unhappy, and, all this struggle thing, right? Yeah. So I was doing counseling about that. And I think by that time I had already broken up with that girl that I met, the first girl I ever dated, which rocked my world. Then I realized that, okay, nothing is wrong with me. It was just the wrong person. But I was struggling about that. And on top of that, my citizenship or my legal status was tied to my marriage. So there's like all these different things going on, like I love my husband, but I want to be true to myself. I don't know what's going to happen. I still love this other girl, but we broke up because of how complicated things are. And my legal status in this country is tied to this marriage. So I cannot even, separate. And it was just like a lot going on. So all of that is going on. And then my dean is saying, okay, I want you to help me with this local chapter for the LGBT community. And I'm like, okay, I guess I will. Let's add one more drama to my list of things. And so I thought, why not? So I reached out to all the different students, and my dean, she was amazing. She had a list of who was gay and who was not in every single class. So she gave me the list, and she said, just be discreet, but reach out to them and see. We're going to have our first meeting. And we had the first meeting, and a lot of people showed up, and that was amazing. And then that's where I met my ex-partner, and she was like, what? I didn't know you were gay. I was like, well, surprise. And so a lot of people, they were very surprised to know that I was not straight, because, automatically they think you're married to a man, then you must be straight, So, I think that pushed me into the right direction to accept who I am and try to be open in the workforce or in my profession, because this is a state organization, it's not just a little thing. But it did help being in that school, being with those people, and knowing that the president of our state association at the time, she's a lesbian woman too. And that was it blew my mind, and it made me think, I don't have to hide anymore.
Right.
It is great. They're all out, and no one is trying to take their license away.
Right. And that's why representation is so crucial. Representation also brought to us and role model brought to us possibilities, because we didn't see that as a possibility, right? Because we sometimes think of, oh my gosh, if you come out, your life ends, your professional life ends. So now you get to see successful people in their professional life who can still be who they are.
Yes, definitely. And that was so impactful for me. Seeing all these role models are doing so well professionally, and they're okay. The community is okay with them being who they are, and they're married. They have their partners. They bring their partners to work-related events, or they have business together, and everybody knows, and everything is fine. And that was so mind-blowing for me, because I come from a background where I had to hide so much of myself. And so that was amazing for me to know that, to know it's okay, and to know no matter what, I have a community that supports me. Let's say, because I wasn't out to my family then. I thought, even if my family cut me off, I do have this chosen family.
Yeah.
And I felt that I have a chosen family here that no matter what, they'll have my back. And that was that realization was so great to know that I'm not alone. And no matter what, I have a chosen family, in case something goes south with my real family. So that was really powerful. That was really great.
Yeah, I think that's where people get confused. Like, we always are accused of recruiting. Like, we're going to go out and recruit. And it's not that. It's just that when you find your tribe and you can be your authentic, then you join the tribe. But nobody from that tribe recruited me. I went and I was seeking them so that I could have a place where I could be who I am, and I think because people see the group continually to grow, you start finding, oh, there's this one, and then there's this one. And then that's where they get this idea that we're recruiting, and it's not any type of a recruitment thing. It's just that.
Well, recruitment would require them to change.
Right.
If you find yourself a group that you can relate to and can be connected to, you're not quite recruiting. You're just finding each other.
Right.
Recruiting would be like if I go find a straight person and try to make them gay, and make them a lesbian, then come join our club. Then that would be recruiting.
It's like if they are coming to join the tribe, then they already are.
Yeah.
There's no recruitment there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when what was what you feel like is your official coming out? Even though the process is long, when was that like, no, that's it, I'm going to do it now, I'm going to be out?
I think when I accepted to help out with the local chapter, for the LGBT local chapter, I think, okay, that's it, I'm out. There's no coming back from that, Like I'll be out in the community, I'll be out in my profession.
Yeah.
Closet is open. How did you handle that with your ex-husband at the time?
He was very encouraging. He's always been very encouraging, but I'm trying to think. He was actually at that time he was very encouraging. We're not having any issues regarding that. I'm trying to think. Yeah, he never had an issue with me not being straight. His issue was with me choosing someone over him. Yeah. And that's something that came later on along the line. He was always very encouraging about me exploring and finding out who I am. And for him, it was all about choice. Yes, I can be not straight, but my choice was to be married to him at the time and choosing every day to be with him. And so for him, he felt very secure about that knowledge, and that was fine. It wasn't until I realized that I was not happy in the marriage and I fell in love with someone else, and realizing all the things I was missing in my marriage was because I was with the wrong person.
Yeah.
And that's when everything started crumbling in my marriage. He was still very encouraging at first, my ex-partner, when I started dating her. And, at the time in my head, I'm like, okay, we have an open relationship and whatnot. And I introduced the two of them, and she even asked permission to date me. It was like very crazy and out there type of situation. But, everything was fine until my ex-husband realized I was not in love with him. And I probably was never in love with him. I didn't know what in love was until I met the right person.
Right.
Because for me, love was just, that's as good as it gets. Like I thought, well, this is my best friend and he understands me. He encourages me and we have a great relationship. So that's it. I shouldn't be picky. That's as good as it gets. Something is broken with me. He doesn't push me. He doesn't forces me, like he loves me as I am. So that in my mind, that was it. I didn't know there was a possibility for me to fall in love like in the movies. Because I remember watching movies or reading stories, and thinking like, that's BS, like that doesn't happen. Why are they exaggerating? I never felt that. So I thought, yeah, whatever, until I met the right person and I fell in love, and I fell madly in love and felt all these different things. And I realized, oh my goodness, how can I go back to my marriage knowing this now? It's like, there's no way. And I didn't know, like, I really tried. I tried to keep it going. And it was just rough on everybody involved, my ex-partner, my ex-husband. It's just, everything was just so complicated. And it came to a point that I had to make a decision. And, it was heartbreaking for everybody involved. And there's, school is going on. I'm graduating, right? I got pregnant. That made even things worse. And so my ex-partner is like, no, I don't want to break your marriage. You're pregnant. You're going to have a child. My ex-husband was, that child is not mine. I'm like, what? It's not hers. I don't know what you're talking about. It was a very complicated situation.
So how were your parents dealing with all this, or did they know this was going on in your life?
My dad did not know. My mom, I'm trying to think, it was before I got pregnant. My mom came for a visit, and I introduced her to my ex-partner. And I think at that time I had already introduced my mom to my dean, the bisexual woman. And so I started introducing a lot of my friends that were in the LGBT community. And my mom said, that's interesting. You have so many weird friends, And I said, no, they're fine. They're good people and this and that, And my mom's like, so if you were not married, I would think you were weird too.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't think this is a conversation you want to have. And so I ignored that conversation.
I want to ask you about that. When you said, what language do you use between you and your mom?
With her, I speak a mix of Mandarin, Spanish, and Japanese.
Okay.
We switch the words depending on the context.
I wanted to hear when you said weird, what was it?
So
like
the
in your
word my
language?
mom used was the Mandarin word qi guai. I don't know.
Okay.
Do you know Mandarin?
Yes, qi guai, yeah.
Yeah, so she said qi guai. So she's
like strange, a little strange, a little weird.
Yeah, like weird, strange. She said like she would use the word like 奇怪的朋友, like strange friends, weird friends.
Yeah.
And so she said, why do you have so many strange friends or so many weird friends, And I'm thinking like, well, they're not weird, they're normal. What are you talking about? But I kind of knew what she was getting at, but I was just acting crazy. I didn't want to have that conversation with her.
My mom before she picked up all the terminology, is he married?
Oh my goodness!
He's also not married.
Would always ask that. Yes, she would always ask that.
She can't say that anymore because we're married.
Go ahead.
I said she can't say that anymore because my partner and I are now married, so we're married. But that's her code because she doesn't know how to say it.
Yeah. Like my mom, she met my ex-partner, and she cannot say the word girlfriend or partner. Nothing. She's like, your friend, your special friend or something like that. Like she cannot say the word. And, when I introduce her to a lot of my LGBT friends, the first thing she'll ask, are they married? I'm like, what? Yeah. No. Why would they be married? No. It's like, oh, does she have a husband? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's just like, that's how she would, categorize things. And so that conversation, I'm trying to think, that was 2013, that she was asking these questions. And then at that time, one of my gay best friend, he was getting married, and I know him since college, and we had this strong bond because coming from a very close religious community, and him choosing to come out and get married to a man, like there was a huge deal. And so he told me, he's like, hey, I'm getting married. I'm like, oh, I'll be right there. When are you getting married? So I think this was a Wednesday. And he said, well, I'm getting married on Saturday. I'm like, what? Why are you just telling me now? Like, how am I supposed to? He's like, well, I didn't know. Like, if people, I understand if people don't come. I'm like, are you crazy? I'm going to be there. So we drove from Miami all the way to Chicago.
Oh, wow.
To be at his wedding, because for me, this is a huge deal. He's a Filipino man, and he's dealing with very religious family and background and all of this, and that's a huge deal for him to come out and get married to a man. And so I said, I have to be there for you no matter what. So my ex-husband and a friend of mine from high school, he came to visit, and I said, okay, we're going to Chicago. And they're like, okay, sure, let's drive to Chicago. So we drove Friday and we arrived on Saturday, went to the wedding, and then drove right back because we had work and school on Monday. So it was just insane. And my mom was visiting at a time, and she's like, "Oh, where are you going this weekend?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to Chicago." And she said, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, my friend is getting married." He's like, "Oh, okay. Where's the wife from?" I'm like, "Oh, no, it's not the wife, his husband." And my mom's like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, yeah, his husband." And she's like, "Oh, so another one of your weird friends."
奇怪的朋友结婚了。
Yes, exactly. And so she was trying to wrap her mind about this. And apparently, because my mom, she flew to Miami and I was in Orlando. So my ex-husband drove her to Orlando, and that's like almost a 4-hour drive. So apparently my mom was drilling my ex-husband the entire drive, asking about me. And she kept asking him, "Do you know Kim has a lot of weird friends?" Like, what do you think about this? 4 hours nonstop. And he was, poor him, he's like, "You know what? I do not want to talk about this. Any question you have, you can ask her directly. I'm not going to answer these questions." But she kept asking the same question over and over, different ways for 4 hours.
Oh my God.
And so the moment he arrived, he's like, "I'm not telling anything to your mom. That's your problem. You talk to her."
She's all yours now.
Yes. And so she did grill me for like 3 hours.
In Chicago?
And she, no. Before we went to Chicago, in Orlando, she drilled me and she was asking me. She's like, "So, is there something you want to tell me?" I'm like, "No, there's nothing I want to tell you." And she's like, "Well, what about this?" And she's asking about all my friends, and I'm like, "Oh, they're doing well." And she's like, "If you were not married, I'll think you're weird too." And I'm like, "Okay, Mom, sure." And she kept looking at me and she's like, "So, is there something you want to tell me?" I'm like, "No, Mom, there's nothing." But she kept drilling and asking in all these different ways she could possibly ask, until I finally broke down and said, "Yes, okay, I like women. Are you happy now?" And she was just so shocked that I finally admitted it. And then she looks at me. She's like, "Okay, when your dad comes, the 4 of us are going to sit down and have a conversation." I'm like, "No, Mom, there's nothing to talk about." She's like, "No, your father needs to know about this. We're going to sit down, your husband, you, your father, and me. The 4 of us are going to sit down, and we're going to find a way to solve this." I'm like, "Mom, there's nothing to solve."
Yeah, the puzzle is done.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She's like, "So, no, we're going to have a conversation." And so she kept drilling and drilling about it. And actually, I'm trying to think. No, that was October. No, actually, she didn't drill me until much later. Like, I'm getting my timeline crossed. So it was like October when I went to Chicago and, introduced her to a lot of my friends. It wasn't until February of next year, 2014. I already started the local chapter for LGBT, and all these different things. I was dating my ex-partner at the time. And she was asking, I think January or February. That's when she drilled me and asked me all these questions. She already met my ex-partner because we were in school together and working in the same clinic together. And so she took a look at her, and then my mom was like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Nothing is going on." She's like, "Don't lie to me." And that's when the whole thing happened. And so she wanted to know if my ex-husband was okay with it. She wanted to know, how does that work? Like all these crazy things. And she said, like, "Okay, we're going to sit down, have a conversation with your father. We're going to find a way to solve this problem." And, she's a doctor. So she's like, "We're going to find a formula, a Chinese medicine formula."
Oh, wow.
Just this. And I'm like, "Mom, I don't think there's a formula for gay people. I don't think that works like that." She's like, "I'm going to find a solution." I'm like, "There's nothing to fix. Everything is fine." So that's how I accidentally came out to my mom. It was forced out of me after hours of drilling.
Yeah.
But with my dad,
How was the meeting like? How was the formula searching meeting like? Did you ever actually get to sit down, the 4 of you, and find a solution?
No, that didn't happen. No, my ex-husband refused to sit down to talk to my parents about things. It's like, this is out of the question. They should not be involved with this. Yeah. And I agree with him. I said, "No, we're not going to have this conversation. This is way too crazy."
So we've all had those tough conversations with family, and parents, God bless them, they want the best for us, but they can't solve all our problems.
Yeah, especially when the so-called problem is who we are. As Dr. Liu said to her mom, "I don't think there's a formula for gay people. There's nothing to fix. Everything is fine." And we've all had those moments where loved ones have wanted to fix us. I am sure our listeners have some interesting stories about family and friends insisting on fixing them. Please share your comments with us about our conversation with Dr. Liu. You can email us at pridetalk@nap.org. That's pridetalk@naaap.org. You can even call us and leave us a voice comment. Our number is 4197-PRIDE5. And of course, you can find all this information in the show notes as well as our website, pride.nap.org. That's pride.naaap.org.
And a quick shout out to NAP, the National Association of Asian American Professionals, which is a nonprofit organization that cultivates and empowers Asian and Pacific Islander leaders through leadership development, professional networking, and community service. Check them out at nap.org. That's naaap.org. We also want to thank our corporate sponsor, Molson Coors, for their continued support of NAP Pride and this podcast, and for the commitment to fostering open and inclusive workplaces where all employees are valued, engaged, and inspired to be the best they can be.
Please join us for our next episode where Kim shares about coming out to her father. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you won't miss anything. Join us next time as we continue this very personal conversation with Dr. Kim Liu.
Until then, remember this: representation matters. So be seen, be heard, be loud, and be proud. Bye.
Bye.
The opinions expressed on Pride Talk are solely those of the host and guests and do not represent the views or opinions of our individual employers, NAP, or our sponsors.